Hello, Pleasure here. So, I wanted to show you a bit about 3dsmax. So we have 3dsmax open here, and we're going to show you some of the basic controls. So this should be the basic setup you have when you start Max for the first time. Maybe it's a little bit different, but it should be about the same. I've tried to set it to all the defaults. So if you go into... Well, let's go over the controls first. By the way, I do not have a script for this, so I'm just going to try to do it as best as I can. So, the middle mouse button controls the movement. So you can pan around left, right in this view. You can also pan around in the other views, left view, top view, front view. So hold the middle mouse button to pan. If you hold down the Alt key and hold the middle mouse button, then you rotate around the space. If you do it here, you will change the view to orthographic automatically. So just go back to the front view was here. Go here and set it to the front view, or you can press F to get into the front view again. So we have pan, we have rotating. You can zoom in and out with the mouse wheel. Same here. You can press the G key for the grid on and off on all views. You can Alt W to go into full screen, and Alt W again to get back out. You can also do it somewhere here, but when you go on the plus here, maximize viewport and then restore viewport, so you don't have to. What we have left, if you hold Control and middle mouse, then it pans faster. Yeah, and that's you can right click to get this menu, which we'll use a lot. Left click and left drag to select, and that's about all for the basic controls. So we have the most important part of 3dsmax is the right panel here. We have our create bar where we can create all the primitives. We have the modify where we have the modifiers, which we will come back to later. We have the hierarchy. Motion, I have never used this. Display is also not that important. And utilities can come in handy for more advanced stuff. So let's just create a box right in the middle here. When you click on the box, you have to drag the object. So if you just press left click, nothing happens. So you have to drag it out and then let go. So now it goes into the height. So you have nothing pressed and you can move the mouse to create the height. And that's all you basically do with every object. So if we do a sphere, here it will only be one drag because it's a sphere, you don't have any height information. With a cylinder you also have the height information, so first you have the radius, and then once you let go it will switch to height automatically, and then you can drag, and you can also go into another view and drag it and just press again, and then this is set. So, oh, and I pressed delete to delete, of course. So let's Alt W to go into full screen. Now let's just create a box. So drag and let go, go to the height and let go. Now we have some settings we can change, like the length segments, width segments, and height segments. Oh, and by the way, you can see this blue outline and this selection stuff, which I do not like. So what I'm going to do is going to customize preferences, and in viewport there is the selection preview highlights, and I like both to be off because I do not like it. So now I don't have this weird. So another key that is important is the M key for material. So here you have the material editor. You probably will be in the slate material view, which is this one. You can use both views. This one is close to the Unreal Dev Kit material editor, so you might want to get used to this one. But you can also use the other one. So this one is just a standard material, and then you can input all the maps here, like in Unreal. I, for one, use the compact one because I don't do much material editing here. I only use gray shaders, so you can just drag this one on top of this object. And when you go into modify, I always set the color to black. What this does is, if you deselect it, you have a black grid. If I would have set it to blue, for example, and I deselect it, you will have blue grid, which I also do not like. So I generally do a black grid. So now we still have this object, and we can set all the basics. You have to set it before you convert it. So when you right click it, you can get to this context menu, and you can convert it to different stuff like editable mesh, editable poly, editable patch. I generally always use editable poly because you have more control over your model. So let's try to explain what poly and tree and vertex even means. So let's delete this for now, and we will create a plane, and we will drag it, and we will set it to one length segment, one width segment. So, and convert to editable poly. A vertex is, make sure we're in the modify panel. A vertex is one of those here. This is a vertex. And a model is always comprised of vertices and trees. Trees as in triangle. And two triangles basically make one polygon. So let's just select this one, select this one with, I'm holding control to select multiple. And if we press connect here in the edit vertices option here, you can see that it connects. So this is the basic polygon you always have. You have, let's go just select here. You have one tree here, and you have 4 verts. Every model consists of these, and we have to try to keep them as low as possible with it still looking good. So basically when we delete this and we create a box and we set it to one segment, by the way, if you right click you will set it to 1. 1 1 1. So you basically have a box here, which if you select every vertices, you have 8 vertices, and if you select all the polygons, you have 6 polygons, which means you have 12 trees, of course. So let's start doing some work on this. Let's make it black again and put the gray shader on, just because I'm used to working that way. Okay, I hope you're already familiar with the controls. So let's check out what we can do with the modifier panel. So For example, the modifier panel is here. Let's go into the modifier list and let's just try a chamfer. Now the chamfer, you can basically what it does is you put a modifier on top of the object you currently are working on, and you can put multiple modifiers on top of each other. So chamfer is one I use regularly. I actually have another modifier which you won't have, which costs money, which is the quad chamfer, which is basically the same, but it works a little bit better than the one from Autodesk. But you can still use this one. So what the quad chamfer does is chamfers all the edges or the ones you select. If you go to select edges, it will only chamfer the edges you select. So now when we go into editable poly, where we can edit it again, and select this edge here, and if you press this button you can see the result, show end result toggle on and off. So you can see the chamfer which we have on top will only chamfer this edge. And if we go into the chamfer again, and we can change the amount, change the segments, and maybe the tension. As you can see, the tension will make it a bit more round. And if we add a few segments, you can basically make it really, really round. And you can play with the settings, try around. That's the whole point here. So let's just say we like it the way it is now. If you want to keep it the way it is now and basically collapse the stack, so get rid of the modifier but keep this model, you can do right click, convert to editable poly, and now this is the editable poly without any modifiers. Keep in mind that if you, for example, let's put a turbo smooth on it. Yeah, this looks weird now, but let's just crank this up, and you can see it has loads and loads of polygons now. So if we accidentally convert this to editable poly, now this object has 3,840 polygons, which is a lot for a game. So we should not have unnecessary polygons we don't need. So this would be not a good idea to do. So Control Z to undo everything here. And let's try out another modifier. But first let's try selecting an edge, and let's check out some of the edge tools. So you can select every edge by hand, or you can use some of the selection tools, which is shrink, grow, ring, and loop. Those are all the selection tools. So grow basically makes the edge selection grow one space. So it selects the side edges here. So let's just try out grow, 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 and it always grows and selects the one adjacent to it. Ring selects the edges parallel to it, all of them. So let's do a ring, and it will select all of the edges around here. And loop basically does the same thing, but not parallel to it, but rather in the same line. So let's do loop, which will not work here because we are at the edge of the model. So that's a thing that I don't like about Max, which annoys me sometimes. You can still select the edge loops here if you select the face and then hold Control and press on edge, then you select all of the edges here. Let's select this edge here and do a ring. And if you go here into the edit edges mode, you can press on connect once, then you have a line, an edge right in the middle. So now I can show you the loop option. So if you select this one here and press loop, it will loop around and select the edge on that side. and you can still move it around if you want to. If you move it up, of course the model will change. If you move it down, and Control Z to undo. So if you, for example, would like this model to have 2 edges instead of 1, you can now, while having it selected, do a chamfer and go into settings, and it will basically split it. Chamfer always chamfers the edge. So if we would do it, let's select this polygon and Control left click on edge. If we would do it here, the chamfer, you will see that it will try at least to chamfer it. That like this. And then you can adjust the segments, so you can basically round this up, but we won't do it now. So yeah, let's check some more stuff out. Let's delete this object for now and create another box. You should know how to do it by now. With 1, 1, 1 length, width, and height segment. Let's type in 100 centimeters or whatever length you have. Let's go to 100 by 100 and convert this to editable poly. So now let's check some other stuff out. Like if we go to the polygon selection tool, let's select this one, and you always have a selection group, you have an edit group. By the way, we can drag this out to be a bit bigger, so we have more space here. So we have extrude, bevel, bridge, flip, inset, outline, which are all important. So let's check out a few of them. Extrude basically just extrudes it. Very simple, it just extrudes the edge out. Bevel does basically the same thing, but it insets the edge, so you can bevel it and create some sort of roof type thing. Then you have bridge, won't work in this case. Inset, which insets the object without extruding it. And I never used outline that much, but outline basically just changes the scale of it. So let's see what bridge does. So let's delete this face. So now you have a block without any faces inside. You have to be careful, because since this is the inside of a polygon, this would not render correctly. If you want to create a box, you always have to have a complete box, not just a face like this. So if you would want to create a box from this, you would have to basically, there's a modifier for those kind of things. So if you go into modifier, there is a modifier that is called I'm trying to find it. Shell. And what shell does is basically extrudes every polygon of the object. So, and that will look like this. So this is the correct way to do a box. Let's convert this to show you. So if I select the face here, you won't see it selected on the other side. That's important if you have an open object, because the inside polygon, let's Control Z to undo everything. The inside polygon, as you can see, is black. It will never get rendered. Just keep that in mind. So to fix this up again, you can select this edge here and Control select the edge here. And if you press bridge now, it will bridge this and fix it back up. So bridging is basically just creating a polygon between two edges. Yeah. Um, so what do we have left? Let's Control Z to undo this. So let's say you want to let's select the top verts here. Let's say you want to do a pyramid type thing. So let's scale this so they touch, or almost touch. Doesn't have to be exact. So now you have a problem. You want this to be completely closed and not like a square. So what you can do is select every vert here, and there's an option that's called weld. And weld with, the thing weld does is basically melt them together to one vert. And you can see how much verts we have left now. So we have one vert. So this is basically what weld does. Let's delete everything again. Let's try to create a cylinder. So yeah, you also have here different options like radius, height segments. I'm pressing F4 by the way for the edge faces mode. Sorry, I didn't explain that earlier. F4 on and off. The sides is the amount of vertices are added. Cap segments. You can just check everything out by yourself. Now let's convert it back to editable poly. And let's see. I can show you another modifier. Let's go into modifier. And one nice modifier is, for example, the FFD. And the FFD, what it does is it adds control points which you can manipulate. So let's try the FFD 3x3x3, which, as you can see, adds 3x3x3 modifiers which you can manipulate. So if we open this up here and go into the control points, we can select one of them. Let's select the middle one. And now we can move it by going here. You can rotate it, you can scale it. So let's move it outside, and you can see it will basically stretch the model with the control point. So that way you can do all sorts of shapes. So you can just try out and just move them around. You can rotate it around if you like. Well, rotating won't do anything with FFD. You can just move it around and just create everything you can think of. So this is a very, very useful modifier. And then once you're done, convert to editable poly. And of course this, because we do not have any edges here, this will look very, very weird. But we can just delete it, and then you can see how it would work. Alright, so let's delete this one again too. What can we do next? Now let's try to explain the edges a bit more. So let's create a box again. F4, sorry again. Convert to editable poly. So, modifier which we will use often is the turbo smooth modifier, which we will use, or I use often for creating the high poly variant. The problem is that if you add a turbo smooth to this box, it will basically collapse it to a ball. That is because it does not have any support. Turbo smooth, basically what it does is smooth every edge it has as much as he can. If you add support edges though, this will not happen. That's why before we use a turbo smooth, we use chamfer a lot. So what chamfer does is add edges on all the corners we select. If we go to selected edges, or from stack in this case, would be good enough because we want every part to be round. Chamfered, sorry. So now if we add a turbo smooth on top of it, it won't collapse into a mall because he has support edges on all the corners. So let's go to 2 iterations, and if you press F4 you can see that now we have smooth corners. And if we go into chamfer again and we have this show end result selected, you can actually modify it so you get the correct result you want. So for example, if you add a few segments and reduce the amount or adjust the amount, you can actually get some cool looking results here. And if you go into standards chamfer, you won't have the hard edges. So this would be a very smooth box. If you intend to create this as normal though, you have to remember that the low poly is still the one in the game, and the normal map just tries to put shading around the corners. So try to keep the smoothing not so much, otherwise it will look weird. You can also of course convert this to editable poly and use it as it is. So you can go back into quad chamfer for example, change the height segments to let's say 1, adjust it a bit, and maybe make turbo smooth only 1, and you could actually use this as a base model if you like. So if we would convert this all to editable poly, then we have this as base model, which has a few edges that are not needed, like the ones in the middle here, but yeah, you can also delete them. So let's say we want to get rid of an edge. For example, this middle one does not do that much for us. So let's select the edge loop. So select loop. Now we have this edge loop. Now you can press backspace to delete it. But remember, if you press backspace, you will not delete the vertices. So these verts are all still there, which will cause problems. So if you intend to still connect them and move them and do whatever with them, you can just press backspace, but for the most part we will probably want to use control backspace, which will delete the attached verts as well. So control backspace, and if you go into vert mode here, you can see that they are gone. So let's do the same for this edge here, loop, control, backspace, gone. So now we got rid of a few edges we don't need. So let's select this one, and this one with control, and loop this as well, and again control backspace, and we got rid of them. So now I forgot these ones. Select, control select, loop, control backspace, and now you can see we have got rid of most of the edges we actually do not need. And we still have a quite smooth surface here. So this would be a nice high poly model. You can see some shading problems here. This is because of the normals, which is a bit complicated topic. So if you want to have the shading fixed, which 3dsmax uses smoothing groups. Smoothing groups are quite complicated. So the easiest thing to do is auto smooth for beginners, which will fix the shading for the most part and should work most of the time. You can select the angle which it should auto smooth, or you can actually smooth it yourself. If you smooth it yourself, let's clear all. Now you can see every corner is a hard corner. If we would want to smooth it, we would probably want to select this face here, do one grow, and I think this would be it. And let's select this face again. Sorry. So deselect everything, select this face, and select the one opposite to it, and we do one grow and set it to poly group, smoothing group 1. Now this is smoothing group 1. Now we will select this one and the opposite, one grow, and set it to 2. Same with this one and the one at the bottom. 1 grow and smoothing group 3. So this should have now 1, 2, yeah, all smoothing groups set, which should be a good shading for later. Looks nice. And if we add the gray shader, and yeah, okay. So let's try some extruding. So if we would select this one here, and let's do a bevel here. You can just try all the, if you have let's delete this face after the bevel here. If you have an open edge here and you go into the border mode, it will automatically select the entire border. Now if you hold down shift and move it, it will actually create faces along the line, the moving where you move it. So you can actually move it, and if you hold shift you can create your model this way and get some interesting results. I often use that for creating the basic shape of the model. Right? And once you're done, you can actually press cap, which will close up the entire model here. Let's just get rid of everything here. Let's delete the whole thing. Now let's check some more modifiers out. So creating a sphere here, and let's check one modifier out I like is, for example, the symmetry modifier. And I just typed in S and Y, SY, to get to the symmetry modifier. Yeah. So the symmetry modifier does what you probably think it does. It mirrors it along an edge. So I can go into the mirror and then move the mirror. That way I change the point where it will do the symmetry. So you can actually create also some very interesting results here. You just have to watch out that you don't have some verts that look weird and will break the model. But this would look nice. So if you convert this to editable poly again, you basically have a new object which we created with symmetry. I'll delete this again. You can do this with all sorts of models. So you can basically create a torus here, and you can add a symmetry modifier to that and go into the mirror, and it's basically the same thing. So you can just symmetry and create all sorts of stuff. This is very good if you create a model and only model the left part. You can symmetry it and have it complete on the other side if the model is the same on all sides. So yeah, I think this is it for the first part. We will do another part on some more stuff. We might even create a little model, but try to just find all the stuff you can do, like create objects and just try to modify it with the modifiers, and try to, let's convert this to editable poly, try to play with the, like what happens if you select a face and move it. You will see that it will just move the face around. Just try out a few stuff. Yeah, and we will try to get another tutorial out tomorrow, where we will probably go into a bit more advanced stuff, and probably will just create a model that will work with the stuff we learned today. So, thanks for watching, and I will see you tomorrow or soon.